Today's reading is found in John chapter 8, verse 1 through 11. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning, he came to the temple courts again. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The experts in the law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught committing adultery. They made her stand in front of them and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. And the law of Moses commanded us to stone to death such a woman. What then do you say?" Now they were asking this in an attempt to trap him so that they could bring charges against him. Jesus bent down and wrote on the ground with his finger. When they persisted in asking him, he stood up straight and replied, "Whoever among you is guiltless may be the first to throw a stone at her." Then he bent over again and wrote on the ground. Now when they heard this, they began to drift away one at a time, starting with the older ones, until Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up straight and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Did no one condemn you?" She replied, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "I do not condemn you either. Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore." Public stoning was a means to two things. First of all, it gave the community a chance to seek communal justice. You see, if everybody was sinned against, or the community was sinned against, then everybody could participate in the act of justice. The second thing that it would actually do is it would exonerate any one single person from killing another human being, because you wouldn't really know who threw the final stone that caused the person to die. The thinking was that justice was served while actually maintaining the innocence of the mob. The mob, they were ready to do the mob's job. This is what mobs do. They act in accordance with the standard of the rest of the mob. And that's kind of the danger of the mob mentality. There's a lot of work that's been done in recent years on the phenomenon of human behavior and how susceptible we are to particular behaviors when everyone around us is also doing them. And that comparing to how we would actually act or think if we were just left on our own. The brilliance of Jesus in this disarmament of the Pharisees is that he called them to self-reflection. Jesus breaks through the chaotic noise of the mob, and he shines a light on the reality of the individual soul in this circumstance. And he knew that if he could shine that light on the individuals, that it would produce humility and forgiveness. You see, the reader of the story is actually meant to place themselves in one of two sets of shoes, or even both sets of shoes at the same time. The first set of shoes is the forgiven adulterer. This is the person who receives the mercy even though they deserved the consequence. And so when you're reading the story, you can place yourself in the woman's shoes, the adulterer's shoes. She did deserve a consequence, but she received mercy. In the same way that mercy is offered to you. The second set of people you're supposed to place yourself in the shoes of is the Pharisees, the ones who were ready to throw the stones. I invite us today to consider the stones that we're actually holding on to ourselves, the justice that we're ready to take into our own hands, the person that we're ready to accuse and to punish. Today, I invite us to consider what Jesus has done for us. You see, the only person who's entitled to pick up a stone and throw it in this circumstance is Jesus. And Jesus chooses the path of forgiveness instead. And Jesus chooses this path all the way to the point of death on a cross for the sake of the sinner's salvation. And so today, as we're processing this story in light of our surrender series, I invite us to consider surrendering our right to justice, surrendering our perceived right to consequences or to any kind of action that we can take in the form of justice. And I invite us to actually sit back, surrender that, and rely on God and trust that God has everything under control and that justice is in his hands and that he has called us to the path of mercy and the path of forgiveness towards those around us.